So we've got this very early pair of Audeze LCD MX4 headphones, which has been great. I've used it for a few years now, very often, many hours on this headphone. As a result of use, as sometimes happens with leather, you can see it's headband's kind of stretched out, the strap. Audeze has replacement straps you can buy from their website. But I found a way to shorten these pretty easily, and I wanted to share it with everybody. So here we go. First thing you do is take out the screws at the top of the yoke rod. Just takes fingers to do this. They're plastic. They'll break if you use a screwdriver too forcefully on them. So just pull that out, set it aside, do it on both sides. Then you just pull the ear cups right out. Set those aside. The only thing we need for this little operation is two things, two tools. Screwdriver, Phillips head to fit those screws in there, and a pair of scissors to cut the leather. If you have an awl or something to poke a hole, you can use that as well, but I just use the screwdriver. So step 2, take out all the screws that hold the strap in place. There's 8 of them, 4 per side. Then what you have is your adjustment block. Set that aside. You have a little plate here that's probably going to be pretty well stuck to the leather. Set that aside. And then the strap should come right off like that. Okay, so we've got the strap removed. Adjustment blocks and screws are all set over there with the headband. So now what I do is I take my pair of scissors and I cut right along this, kind of right at where the screws go in. I found that this gives me the best length for my head when this happens, and I want to shorten it up. So we just want to cut right across above the screw holes, like that. Then I put a little angle on it, just like that, on both sides. Not too critical. Just a little 45 degrees or something to keep it from poking out. That way when you put the plate back on, you don't have the corners sticking out. So it looks cleaner. So do that to both sides. And again, you can experiment and find the best place for you to cut. I just found this works best for me. Kind of depends on your head size, your head shape, and how much your headband strap might have stretched. And you can kind of see now there's going to be a fair amount of distance there. So even if this headband stretches more, it's probably not going to get uncomfortable. So we've got that first one in place. Kind of just put the plate on. That shows us where the holes are going to be. So we just line everything up kind of right where we want it. The second side will be a little more critical. First side you can just eye it pretty easily. That looks pretty straight when I hold them together. You can adjust the angle of this a bit. So if you find that the headband is tilting one way or the other, you can adjust the strap a little bit to fit. Then I just take my screwdriver. You can use an awl for this or whatever. Don't poke yourself. And I just kind of put like a pre-hole in it. Like that. And that just gives the screw something to bite into. Then we put the first screw in, hold it in. And you have to press pretty firmly, and it takes a little extra effort to get things started. Since there's no hole in this leather, you're basically pushing the leather aside. But it makes for a nice tight fit. Audeze would probably say, "What the hell are you doing?" Can't do it like that. But hey, it works for me, and I haven't had any problems. I've done it to a few pairs. So, they're my headphones. If I break it, it's kind of my fault. But so far, I'm pretty confident in this. You know, your results will vary, so don't sue me if you mess up your headphones, but here we go. It's not that complicated. It's not heart surgery or rocket scientry, as my boss used to say. Okay, so once the 2 screws are in there, like that, we have some looseness going on, which is great, so we can adjust. Now we want to switch to the other side and put this side on and kind of line things up. And then we can fine tune using the other sides of the screws to get things really well adjusted. And again, you want to make sure that you're putting the left and right in the proper side, because the headband only goes in one way, or the yoke rod only goes in one way. There's flat sides on the screw, so you have to make sure that's facing the proper direction for your pair of headphones. There's a couple variations on this I found. In my case, since these are an old pair, this screw is in the front. And this screw, by the way, is not adjustable. Don't try to adjust it. You'll bust it, and then you're going to be screwed. Not my fault. But they glue those in place in the factory so they don't come loose. So don't adjust that. But anyway, you want to make sure that's facing the right direction for your pair of headphones. And I think the newer pairs, they have it so that screws in the back. And these older pairs like mine, the screw's in the front. So put these in same way we did before. Notice that one, I was talking, I forgot. I didn't even press in to make the indent for the screw to grab into. I just started going at it, which is fine. It worked pretty well. Now we've got that side in. I'm just going to tighten these up. We're going to get this so you guys can see it. I'm going to tighten these up so they're just snugged up. I don't want to flatten it down yet and get it firm. I just want to make it so it's not rattling around. See, this one's rattling around. This one's not. So we want to make it so it's not rattling around, but it's not totally tight. And there's so many different ways you could do this. It really probably doesn't matter that much. But I've just found that in my practice with doing these, it really works well to get them just kind of basically tightened up. And then you can adjust this, the tilt of this, you know. Right now it looks pretty straight. Like if I just hold it and let it relax, it's pretty well centered there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. But if I needed to adjust, I could tug on one side or the other and move this and put the screws wherever it needs to go. But I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just going to go for it. So then you just put the other 4 screws in the same way you did those. Okay, so now I've got all 8 screws back in place, just snug. They're not tight yet, so I want to see how this looks. That looks pretty good, like it's centered well over there. And you can see a really good space between. I can push it up with one finger, but that's it. So when this actually goes on my head, it's probably not going to touch for quite a long time. So that'll be good. So now I'm happy with the positioning of it. I don't really feel like I need to tweak it anymore. So I'm just going to smash this down. Get these things as tight as I can without stripping. Okay, so I've got all these screws tightened up nice and snug. Don't want to risk stripping anything, but they're really tight. So the headband, there's a nice space there. Things are centered well. So the last step is to just put the ear cups on and put the screws back in. So there's a flat side on the yoke rod and a flat side in the block there. Just push it in. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. You can't put them in backwards, they won't go. So then we have the backs of the ear pads, the thicker part. There's to the left. So I got that correct. And then the last thing is just to put these little screws back in, just using your fingers. Don't use a screwdriver, you'll break it. Well, you won't necessarily break it, but you can. I've done it. And that's fixable, but kind of a pain. Hopefully at some point they'll stop using plastic screws here. You don't really need it. Oh, hello, cat. Suki approves. There we go. All good. Suki loves these headphones as much as I do. Aww.